When your workforce, tech stack, and business needs are evolving all at once, you need HCM software that moves just as fast. That's why Paylocity builds what's next, providing innovative and simplified solutions for clients to tackle the real challenges they face every day. From AI-driven insights to automated workflows across HR, finance, and IT, Paylocity's platform doesn't just keep up, it leads. It's time to simplify complexity, drive results, and move forward together. Start now at paylocity.com/simplified.
It's Saturday the 17th of May, I'm Jamie East, and this was a week that saw Labour tackling migration, Donald Trump touring the Middle East, no one turned up for Putin's peace talks, and big winners at the BAFTA TV Awards. Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
But not the news. The main item on the government's to-do list this week seemed to be migration. Monday saw them publish a new immigration white paper which laid out new plans to reduce legal migration and prioritise UK-based workers. The most significant change proposed is a plan to shut down the scheme that offers visas for overseas care workers. The announcement sparked immediate concern from NHS unions and care providers who say they're already struggling to fill positions. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper spoke to the BBC on Sunday and defended the proposal.
That is a significant change, and we're doing it alongside saying we need to bring in a new fair pay agreement for care workers because we saw that huge increase in care work recruitment from abroad, but without actually ever tackling the problems in the system.
The focus on reducing legal and illegal migration seems to be in response to the rise of reform in the polls, and the Home Secretary was keen that employers recruit those who already have visas in the UK. Tory Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phillips seemed keener on a high-tech solution involving robots, although it's not clear how that would work in a care home setting.
Instead of importing huge numbers of low-wage migrants, instead invest in that technology.
So yes, so have robots, not people.
Yes, to avoid being dependent on mass low-skilled migration.
Keir Starmer formally launched the white paper on Monday, speaking behind a podium with securing Britain's future on it, but it didn't go well. He was accused of stirring up anti-immigrant rhetoric and of echoing the notorious Enoch Powell speech where he spoke of rivers of blood.
Now, in a diverse nation like ours, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
Starmer's new plan aims to cut migration numbers by 100,000 and turn the page on chaos, in a reference to the dramatic jump in migrant numbers in 2023 and 24 under the previous Tory government. However, Tory leader Kemi Badenoch was unimpressed by the new proposals, claiming that Labour don't believe in secure borders.
I think Labour are taking the public for fools. Many of the things he was announcing are things that they are voting against right now. Labour are taking us for fools.
There was a backlash from Labour MPs and a dressing down from the Speaker of the House of Parliament for announcing details in public rather than in the Commons. The PM has said he won't shy away from direct talk about the difficult subject, but Home Secretary Yvette Cooper was attempting to reset the debate.
The point he was making was the importance of recognising the impact that we've seen this big increase in net migration, and also that we've got to have the support for integration, the support for English language speaking, a lot of the measures that are set out as part of that white paper.
Starmer seemed a touch irritable at the podium for Prime Minister's question time as he came under pressure for his change of approach to migration.
I want to lead a country where we pull together and walk into the future as neighbours and as communities, not as strangers. And the loss of control of migration by the last government put all of that at risk.
Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey was concerned about the proposed changes to the visa scheme to carers, and he was keen that those already working in social care should be recognised.
Now, those carers looking after our loved ones in care homes should be thanked. But will the Prime Minister do now the things the Conservatives refused to do, starting with a higher minimum wage for carers?
Starmer was on the road on Thursday, landing in Albania to meet their PM Edi Rama. The topic for discussion was organised crime and smuggling gangs, but the government has also been floating the idea of return hubs in third countries, not dissimilar to the Tories' Rwanda scheme. Italy's already in discussions with Albania about something similar, and there was a snub for Starmer as the Albanians made clear they weren't interested in opening any other discussion until that's resolved. The PM soldiered on, though, explaining why reform hubs could be an important tool.
I see them as a really important innovation, and that is consistent with the work that we've done in relation to the record number of returns, and what I'd like to do is add return hubs to that.
Chancellor Rachel Reeves was backing the new firmer tone on migration from the government, discounting the argument that immigration is needed to drive the economy.
We've seen high levels of immigration along the same time that we've had very low levels of economic growth. So I don't buy this argument that we grow the economy simply by bringing more people into our economy.
This week's seen more chaos from the White House as controversy swirled around a high-end jet that Qatar have decided to gift to President Trump to replace Air Force One. The catch is that Trump gets to keep it after he leaves office, which certainly sounds like a breach of several rules. There was also continuing chaos at Newark Airport and an announcement of a step back from the tariff war with China, but only for 90 days and with tariffs still at 30%. So, of course, the US president launched a brand new tariff initiative, this one aimed at Big Pharma. The announcement was difficult to follow, but it appears to involve putting new tariffs on drugs made outside the United States.
So for the first time in many years, we'll slash the cost of prescription drugs and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down by much more, really, if you think. It depends on the way you want to analyze it, but in one way you could analyze it that way. But between 59 and 80, and I guess even 90%.
This week also saw Trump head to the Middle East for his first official visit of his second term. He spoke on Tuesday at the Saudi-US Investment Summit, announced the signing of a $140 billion arms deal, and lavished praise on his host, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, whilst also surprising diplomats with an announcement on Syria.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness. Oh, what I do for the Crown Prince.
Trump met interim Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara in Riyadh this week, and it appears in order to get the US sanctions lifted, the Syrians have offered access to Syrian oil and a proposal for a Trump Tower in Damascus. Al-Shara had a $10 million bounty on his head until December, but the US attitude towards Syria shifted dramatically. Saudi Crown Prince bin Salman and Turkish President Erdogan were the key persuaders of Trump's change of mind, and he seemed prepared to ignore al-Shara's al-Qaeda past. Next up was Qatar, who were about to donate that massive jet to Donald, and he was speaking very highly of his host, Qatar's Emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani.
I just want to thank you for the friendship, for the long-time friendship. And we came from Saudi Arabia, where we have another great man over there that's a friend of yours. You sort of remind me a little bit of each other, if you want to know the truth. They're both tall, handsome guys that happen to be very smart.
There was some hope this week that we might see a breakthrough in the Gaza conflict after it emerged that the Trump administration's been negotiating with Hamas in advance of Donald's visit to the Middle East this week. The negotiations appeared to pay off as the last US hostage, American-Israeli soldier Eden Alexander, who was captured on October the 7th, was released on Monday. The release appeared to be a gesture of goodwill from Hamas, but Israeli PM Netanyahu was quick to claim credit because of the Israeli military presence in Gaza. Eden's brother Tal Haimi says it's time for all the hostages to be released.
I am joyful and thankful to the U.S. administration for pushing forward and making this happen. This only shows us the only way that hostages come back home alive and unhurt is by making deals.
That was the only good news this week, though, as Israel stepped up airstrikes on targets in Gaza, including a strike on the European hospital in Khan Yunis that killed at least 28 people on Tuesday. The IDF says the strike was aimed at a Hamas command and control centre under the hospital, and it's believed they were targeting Hamas leader Mohammed Sinwar. Israeli PM Netanyahu is promising a dramatic escalation in force in Gaza over the next few days, despite calls for restraint from Trump. Meanwhile, the aid blockade continues for a 10th week, and UNICEF's Jonathan Crick says the situation's desperate.
This is the reason why it's absolutely critical that the ceasefire is reinstated and that humanitarian aid can finally re-enter at scale. All the children I'm seeing here in Gaza are really desperate and living in the most awful conditions.
There were more Israeli strikes across Gaza on Wednesday. This time they focused on the northern Jabalia area, with local hospitals estimating that as many as 80 people were killed. The IDF said it was targeting Hamas fighters in the north after rockets were fired into Israel, and that it had issued evacuation orders to locals. While the airstrikes intensify, there's been no sign of a ceasefire or any lifting of the blockade on aid, food and fuel, despite increasing pressure from aid agencies and the United Nations. UN Under-Secretary-General Tom Fletcher is the agency's aid chief, and he addressed a Security Council meeting in New York with a plea for urgent action.
Israel is deliberately and unashamedly imposing inhumane conditions on civilians in the occupied Palestinian territory. Will you act decisively to prevent genocide and to ensure respect for international humanitarian law? Or will you say instead that we did all we could?
Last Saturday saw the leaders of France, Germany, Poland and the UK make a joint visit to Ukraine. They met with Zelensky and joined a conference call with other European leaders to lay out a clear ultimatum for Russian President Putin. Keir Starmer made it clear that the US was backing his ultimatum and there would immediately be another wave of sanctions and more military support for Ukraine if the ceasefire didn't start on Monday.
There's only one country that started this illegal conflict, and that was Russia. And there's only one country that stands between peace, and that's Russia.
That ultimatum did spur a response from Putin, but not to accept a ceasefire. Instead, he proposed there should be direct talks between Ukraine and Russia on Thursday in Istanbul.
Despite everything, we proposed to the authorities in Kyiv to resume the negotiations they interrupted, to resume talks without any preconditions. That should begin without delay.
US President Donald Trump was in the Middle East, but it appeared he wasn't intending to attend Thursday's peace talks, despite a plea from Ukrainian President Zelensky.
We will do everything to agree on a ceasefire. Putin is the only one who can decide on a ceasefire. We have invited President Trump to join us, and if he confirms, that gives Putin an additional impetus to come.
In the end, Putin didn't turn up for the peace talks he proposed either, instead sending a relatively low-level delegation. And although Ukrainian President Zelensky was in Turkey and willing to meet, in the end, he also didn't bother going. Speaking from Ankara, he sounded disappointed, but not surprised.
Our delegation is at the highest level, in order to make any decisions that can lead to the expected, just peace. I don't know the level of the Russians officially, but from what we see, it looks more like a sham level.
The US did send Secretary of State Marco Rubio, but despite Donald Trump being nearby and in theory being the driving force behind the call for peace, he didn't show up either.
Nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together, okay? And obviously he wasn't going to go. He was going to go, but he thought I was going to go. He wasn't going if I wasn't there. And I don't believe anything's going to happen, whether you like it or not, until he and I get together.
Still to come on the Standout 7 in association with Metro. Rupert Lowe says Nigel Farage is running a cult, and the big winners from the BAFTA TV Awards. Right after this.
Hey, you know what would make your customer service help desk way better? Dumping it and then switching to Intercom. But you're not quite ready to make that change. We get it. That's why Finn, the world's leading AI customer service agent, is now available on every help desk. Finn can instantly resolve up to 80% of your tickets, which makes your customers happier and gets you off the customer service rep hiring treadmill. Finn by Intercom, the leading customer service AI agent, now available on every help desk.
Welcome back.
Aside from migration, the government was focused on prisons on Wednesday and the fact that once again the UK's prison system is operating at maximum capacity. Last year saw prisoners released early in the wake of the Southport riots, but Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood says the UK's prisons are now 99% full again. She announced new capital investments of £4.7 billion, which will see 3 new prisons being built and funding for new cells at existing prisons.
This is a record prison expansion. And after the long delays under the last government, we are building at breakneck pace. But we must be honest. Prison building is not sufficient.
Even that new investment won't be enough, however, and there's an independent sentencing review due next week, which may see recommendations for more early releases and prison reforms. Amy Rees is the former chief executive of the Prison and Probation Service, but has now been appointed to the Justice Department as interim permanent secretary, and she says the system's close to breaking point.
If Operation Early Dawn is unable to manage the flow of prisoners, the situation becomes intolerable. We would see the managed breakdown of the criminal justice system.
The week saw good news for Chancellor Rachel Reeves on Thursday, however, as the UK's economy outperformed expectations and grew by 0.7% in the first quarter of the year. That's considerably better than the 0.1% growth recorded in the last quarter of 2024, and the Office of National Statistics say the growth was driven by the services sector, including retail. They were cautioning that uncertainty over Trump's tariffs may see growth slow later in the year, but Emma Reynolds, Economic Secretary to the Treasury, said it's a positive start.
There's still much more to do. We need high levels of growth so that people's living standards start to increase. In the last Parliament, we saw stagnating living standards. We haven't been able to turn around a stagnating economy in a matter of months.
The former Reform MP Rupert Lowe was back in the spotlight after the Crown Prosecution Service decided not to press charges over threats he was alleged to have made. The accusation saw him lose the party whip and the Reform MP benches shrink to just 4 before by-election winner Sarah Pochin arrived. Lowe, whose criticism of Nigel Farage appeared to start a chain of events, is unrepentant and told Newsnight on Thursday he was a victim of what he calls Nigel's brutal leadership style.
I don't dislike Nigel. I think he's running a cult. I don't think he's fit to be leader. I think he's ultimately a very good ballroom entertainer. If you gave him the power of the British state behind him, he has demonstrated that he is not fit to be wielding that power.
Peter Sullivan, who was jailed for 38 years for the murder of Diane Sindel, finally had his conviction overturned on Tuesday. He was arrested for the murder of the 21-year-old barmaid in Merseyside in 1986. The case was finally overturned after new DNA evidence taken from the scene cleared him of the murder, and his conviction was quashed at the Royal Court of Justice in London as Mr Sullivan, now 68, watched on a video link from Wakefield Prison. He served over 14,000 days and police have no other suspects for the crime. Mr Sullivan's lawyer Sarah Myatt read a statement on his behalf outside the court.
As we advance towards resolving the wrongs done to me, I am not angry, I am not bitter. I am simply anxious to return to my loved ones and family, as I've got to make the most of what is left of the existence I am granted in this world.
Sunday evening saw the TV BAFTAs take place in London's Royal Festival Hall, hosted by Alan Cummings. The biggest shock of the evening was probably Lenny James beating David Tennant, Martin Freeman, Gary Oldman and Richard Gadd to the title of leading actor in a drama for his role in Mr Loverman. There was a win for Jessica Gunning as Best Supporting Actress for her role in Baby Reindeer, and wins for Mr Bates vs The Post Office and Shogun, while Danny Dyer picked up Best Actor in a Comedy for Mr Big Stuff. Ruth Jones won Best Female in a Comedy for Gavin and Stacey and had one Mr on her mind.
My dear, talented, lovely, kind, funny friend, James Corden, with whom I have shared this astonishing journey for the past 17 years, and without whom Shanessa Jenkins would simply not exist. I love you, James. I love writing with you. Long may it continue.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes and we'll give you the world.
When your workforce, tech stack, and business needs are evolving all at once, you need HCM software that moves just as fast. That's why Paylocity builds what's next, providing innovative and simplified solutions for clients to tackle the real challenges they face every day. From AI-driven insights to automated workflows across HR, finance, and IT, Paylocity's platform doesn't just keep up, it leads. It's time to simplify complexity, drive results, and move forward together. Start now at paylocity.com/simplified.